Nothing says Happy Halloween like setting off the smoke alarm with your own stupidity. 1. The dummy disaster. Some neighbors decorate with pumpkins, others go full CSI Suburbia. In Ohio, a homeowner created a hyper-realistic dummy, face down in the yard, fake blood, plastic axe, perfect Halloween vibes, until a panicked neighbor called 911 to report a murder. 2 cops showed up, found nothing but leaves and polyester limbs, and left, shaking their heads. The neighbor? Still unconvinced. They filed a follow-up report. Nothing says festive like explaining to the police that your corpse is seasonal decor. 2. The Candy Class War. In Florida, one HOA resident filed a formal complaint, not about noise, safety, or pranks, but about the quality of Halloween candy. Their grievance? The neighbors were giving out off-brand sweets, which they claimed lowered the prestige of the neighborhood. They even suggested a list of approved candies for next year to maintain standards. Imagine drafting a memo about brand integrity for Tootsie Rolls. Trick or treat? No, darling. It's trick or gentrify. 3. The Fog Machine Satanist. In Oregon, a dad in a $12 vampire costume set up a fog machine for ambience. Across the street, a neighbor watched the mist rise from a plastic cauldron and concluded, satanic ritual. They called the cops to report possible occult activity. Police arrived to find Dad knee-deep in burnt fog fluid, muttering, "Why does it smell like melted crayons?" while adjusting the extension cord. The only thing summoned that night was embarrassment, and maybe mild lung irritation. 4. Turf Wars, the Lawns of Doom. Halloween brings out 2 kinds of people, those who love kids and those who install security cameras to catch them stepping on grass. A man in Texas spent hundreds setting up motion detectors, floodlights, and a full surveillance network, not to stop vandals, but to document every trick-or-treater who dared to cut across his lawn. He presented the evidence at a neighborhood meeting like it was a war crimes tribunal. His closing statement, "This is what's wrong with America." Yeah, buddy. It's the 8-year-old in a Spider-Man costume, not your obsession with turf integrity. 5. The inflatable ghost that blocked the sun. A woman in Arizona filed a city complaint because her neighbor's 12-foot inflatable ghost was, and I quote, casting an emotionally distressing shadow on her petunias. According to her statement, the ghost's silhouette blocked sunlight for 45 minutes a day, stunting their growth. She demanded the ghost be deflated during peak solar hours. Somewhere, that ghost is silently apologizing for photosynthesizing too hard. And those petunias? Probably praying for winter. 6. The HOA versus a 7-year-old artist. In Virginia, a woman proudly displayed her daughter's hand-painted wooden ghosts. Adorable, googly eyes, and all. Within a week, she got a letter from the HOA accusing her of maliciously tacky decor. The claim? That her child's art lowered neighborhood property values. Imagine being the kind of adult who drafts a legal document to roast a first grader's paint job. Those ghosts weren't scary, but the neighbors absolutely were. 7. The Screaming Owl Incident. Some people love Halloween screams, others call the EPA. In Massachusetts, one bird-watching enthusiast filed a complaint claiming his neighbor's motion-activated sound effects were disrupting local fauna. He said the high-pitched shrieks were indistinguishable from the North American screech owl's mating call. In other words, he thought horny owls were getting mixed signals. His proposed solution? Replace the screams with a lower, more sensual moan. Congratulations, sir. You just invented the world's first PG-13 haunted house soundtrack. 8. The Great Pumpkin Envy. Halloween competition is fierce, but one guy in Illinois went nuclear, filing an HOA complaint accusing his neighbor's Hollywood-level animatronic graveyard of psychological intimidation. His exact words, "It creates unrealistic expectations for the rest of us." Basically, he wanted the neighbor to tone down the fun because his single plastic pumpkin looked sad by comparison. Imagine being so jealous you call the city because your decor has low self-esteem. The true horror that night wasn't the zombies. It was envy in a polo shirt. 9. The Michael Myers Standoff. In Connecticut, a neighbor called the police to report a pale man staring into windows every night. Officers arrived expecting a stalker, only to find a cardboard cutout of Michael Myers from Halloween. The neighbor insisted it was promoting stalking culture and demanded it be removed. The homeowner refused, saying, "He's part of the family now." The cops left, probably questioning every life choice that led them to explaining movie villains to grown adults. Somewhere, the cutout is still standing silently, winning the world's slowest staring contest. 10. The Pomeranian with PTSD. A California woman complained that her neighbor's giant spider decoration was emotionally traumatizing her Pomeranian Tiffany. Apparently, the furry fake arachnid caused panic, digestive irregularities, and loss of confidence in the dog. She demanded not only removal of the spider, but also financial compensation for canine therapy. Imagine being a therapist specializing in helping tiny dogs recover from seasonal decor. Tell me, Tiffany, when you saw the web, how did that make you feel? 11. The minivan apocalypse. At a luxury-gated community in California, residents weren't mad about trick-or-treat traffic. They were mad about the kind of traffic. One homeowner wrote a furious letter saying the influx of domestic minivans was creating a transient atmosphere inconsistent with the neighborhood's economic harmony. Translation: they didn't like seeing Hondas on Halloween. They demanded visitors park outside the gates and walk. Nothing says community spirit like making kids hike uphill in costumes while you protect your property value. 12. The Pumpkin Decomposition Manifesto. In Illinois, one woman posted on her neighborhood Facebook group 2 weeks before Halloween, demanding that everyone provide a written pumpkin disposal schedule. She wanted a signed guarantee that all jack-o'-lanterns would be removed by 9 a.m. on November 1st, before they could begin to rot and offend her nostrils. You know your life's too calm when your biggest fear is gourd decay. Somewhere, her neighbors are still tempted to drop off a surprise rotting pumpkin at her doorstep every November, for educational purposes. 13. The Raisin Police. In New Jersey, one dad took the phrase "crime against humanity" to a new level by calling actual police on a house that gave out raisins and granola bars instead of candy. His 911 statement: "They're psychologically torturing children." The dispatcher had to remind him that offering healthy snacks is not, in fact, a felony. He hung up unsatisfied, muttering about false advertising. Somewhere, a child was crying over a box of Sunmaids, and a police officer was wondering how to quit humanity. 14. The Scarecrow Slander Case. In Vermont, a man threatened to sue his neighbor over a scarecrow. The reason? He believed the scarecrow was mocking him personally. It wore a flannel shirt and a fishing hat, his signature look. He accused the neighbors of public defamation via effigy. They bought it at Home Depot. It cost $10. He still insisted the straw man was character assassination. Nothing screams self-awareness like assuming the cornfield is gossiping about you. 15. The Halloween Color Police. An HOA in North Carolina sent a warning letter to a homeowner for using, brace yourself, blue and green lights. The complaint argued that aquatic tones caused seasonal confusion and were emotionally inconsistent with the spirit of Halloween. They even cited the historical significance of the traditional orange-purple color palette, because nothing says spooky like a 12-page essay about RGB values. Somewhere, Picasso is rolling in his grave, and it's definitely not orange or purple. 16. The Cat That Blocked Thanksgiving. A neighbor in Washington filed a formal complaint on the morning of November 1st because a family hadn't yet deflated their giant black cat inflatable. She claimed it was preventing the neighborhood from moving forward emotionally toward Thanksgiving. Apparently, closure now depends on air compressors. The family took it down that afternoon, but the damage was done. She'd already posted in the community forum. Some people just can't let go. Ma'am, it's been 12 hours. The turkey can wait. 17. The graveyard that wasn't a family in Arizona, decorated with colorful Dia de los Muertos skulls and marigolds, a beautiful cultural celebration. Their neighbor? Not so cultured. He called code enforcement to report an unauthorized graveyard. He demanded the display be replaced with American Halloween decor. When told it was a different holiday entirely, he doubled down. Well, it's confusing, my dog. Imagine being so committed to ignorance, you try to colonize a holiday. 18. The Ghostbusters Breakdown. In Massachusetts, one man called the Environmental Protection Agency, yes, the EPA, to report noise pollution from his neighbor's Halloween speaker. The toxic noise? The Ghostbusters theme song, playing on loop. He claimed the repetition was giving him migraines, and that the phrase, "I ain't afraid of no ghost," was psychologically manipulative. By the time the police arrived, he was pacing his driveway like a haunted man, muttering, "They're everywhere." The real ghost? His sanity. 19. The Skeleton Political Party. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, a man set up a skeleton display, complete with a podium, campaign posters, and a sign reading "Vote Bone 2024. It was clever. It was harmless. It was also apparently treason. His neighbor called City Hall to report unauthorized political activity by skeletal entities. When told it was clearly fake, they doubled down. Well, it's influencing voters. Yes, Susan, the skeleton, the one made of plastic. Truly, democracy trembles before the undead. 20. The Candy Tax Revolution. In Michigan, a man gave out candy but also charged a Halloween tax. His setup included a jar labeled "for neighborhood security," and he'd ask every parent for 25 cents per visit to support community patrols. The HOA got wind of it and sent a cease and desist letter calling his operation a deceptive candy-based enterprise. He defended himself in the group chat. Even Ben Franklin paid taxes. Somewhere, an accountant ghost is whispering, "Not like that, buddy." 21. The Haunted House That Needed a Permit. In Oregon, a family went all out. Fake coffins, fog, animatronics, even a volunteer zombie crew. The problem? They didn't get a special event permit. The city fined them for operating an unlicensed entertainment venue. Apparently, once your ghost count exceeds 10, you're legally a theme park. The family's defense was flawless. "We're just bad at paperwork." They later renamed their attraction Bureaucracy of the Damned. Honestly, scarier than most haunted houses. 22. The Candy Corn War. In Indiana, two neighbors got into a screaming match over who invented candy corn. It escalated from "that's not traditional" to "my family's been serving it since 1920. Someone called the cops, who arrived to find both parties waving half-empty bowls like dueling pistols. When asked what started it, one yelled, "He said it's made of beeswax." The officer, faced with a philosophical crisis, simply said, "Gentlemen, it's sugar. Go home." 23. The Ghost with the HOA Violation. In Georgia, an HOA fined a family for hanging a skeleton from a tree, not for gore, but for height. The rules stated that no decoration shall exceed 8 feet in vertical display area. Theirs was 882. The HOA president measured it with a tape measure and a stepladder. When the homeowners lowered it 2 inches, she came back the next day with a note. "Thank you for your cooperation, but please ensure future skeletons remain regulation compliant." Somewhere, Dracula's crying blood tears over the paperwork. 24. The Pumpkin Spice Saboteur. In Colorado, a woman launched a full-scale campaign against her neighbor's pumpkin-scented yard display. She claimed the aroma of synthetic cinnamon and decaying squash essence was triggering seasonal hysteria. She called the fire department to report an airborne irritant. When firefighters arrived, they found 3 candles and a mildly embarrassed husband holding a rake. They concluded it was not an emergency, though one firefighter did admit the smell was aggressively autumn. Somewhere, Starbucks just got a new slogan. Now 25. The Costume Copyright Crisis. In California, a mom threw a block party where several kids dressed as Marvel superheroes. Sounds cute, right? Not to her neighbor, who happens to be an intellectual property lawyer. He showed up in a 3-piece suit, waving cease and desist letters at 5-year-olds dressed as Spider-Man. His reasoning? They didn't license the characters. He genuinely tried to educate toddlers about copyright law between juice boxes. The parents told him to relax, but he replied, "That's what Disney said before the lawsuit." He went home that night as the scariest costume of all, a lawyer with free time. 26. The Trick-or-Treat Data Breach. In Utah, a safety-conscious couple decided to hand out candy only after scanning each child's QR code. They'd built a voluntary registration app that recorded trick-or-treater names for security and neighborhood analytics. Translation: they turned Halloween into a surveillance program. Parents refused, kids booed, and one dad dressed as Batman yelled, "You're the villains!" The couple claimed it was the future of safe holidays. Yeah, if your idea of fun is trick-or-treating under the Patriot Act. 27. The Haunted Drone Apocalypse. Some genius in Texas thought it'd be epic to attach glow sticks and a Grim Reaper robe to his drone. He flew it over his neighborhood at night, forgetting that not everyone loves floating skeletons descending from the sky. Within minutes, 911 was flooded with calls about a flying demon. One guy fired a Nerf gun at it. The drone eventually crash-landed into a swimming pool where it continued to glow like a radioactive jellyfish. The FAA got involved. His explanation, "I was bringing the spirit of Halloween to the skies." Yeah, and the FAA brought you back to Earth. With a fine. 28. The self-haunting incident. And finally, the masterpiece of human idiocy. A man in Ohio spent weeks rigging his house with speakers, motion sensors, and smoke machines to create the ultimate haunted experience. The problem? He forgot to turn it off. So, at 3 a.m. on November 12th, his motion sensors triggered, setting off screaming, fog, and flickering lights. The neighbors thought a murder was happening. The cops broke down his door. He came running out in his pajamas yelling, "It's the spirits!" They arrested him for disturbing the peace, which is ironic, since that's exactly what his house refused to do. Halloween, the only night when everyone loses their sanity, and some lose their HOA privileges too. Which of these spooky screw-ups deserves the pumpkin crown of stupidity? Tell me in the comments below. If your ghost Wi-Fi still works.